In the quiet village of Amara, where red dust danced in the wind and goats roamed freely across narrow footpaths, lived a girl named Amara. Just 19, she was known for her soft smile, quiet strength, and the way she always put others before herself. She lived with her ailing mother, Mama Nena, in a small thatched hut on the edge of the village. Her father had died when she was just a child, and since then, it had been just the two of them, surviving on little but hope and hard work. Every morning, Amara would walk to the river with her calabash balanced on her head, fetching water before tending to the small garden behind their hut. But over the past few months, her mother's strength had begun to fail. First, it was the coughing fits, then the blood in her handkerchief. Soon, Mama Nena couldn't leave her mat, and Amara had to carry her to the bush toilet. The village herbalist had given roots and barks, but they had no effect. Finally, one of the visiting church nurses said the truth out loud. "Your mother needs surgery in the city. Without it, she will not survive." Amara's heart sank. Surgery. City hospital. The words felt like distant stars, real but far beyond reach. The cost of the operation was more than she could imagine. They barely had enough to buy medicine, let alone travel to the city and pay doctors. She cried every night, silently, while her mother slept restlessly beside her. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in orange and purple, the village chief, Chief Udoka, came to visit. He sat on the old wooden stool and looked at Amara with a serious face. "Your mother is loved by many in this village. She has served us as a midwife, healer and counselor. But there's only one man willing to pay for her treatment, and he has a condition." Amara's heart pounded. "What condition, sir?" The chief looked away, uncomfortable. "He wants to marry you." Silence fell like a rock in the room. "Who?" she whispered. "Obinna," the chief said. Amara gasped. Obinna was the son of a wealthy cocoa farmer. Years ago he had fallen from a tree while harvesting, breaking his spine. He now used a wheelchair and was rarely seen in public. People whispered about his temper, his silence, his strange moods. Some said he hadn't smiled in years. He lived in a mansion surrounded by high walls and was feared more than he was loved. "Why me?" Amara's voice cracked. "He saw you at the village festival last year. Since then, he has asked about you many times. When he heard about your mother, he made an offer. He'll pay for the surgery, all expenses. But you must become his wife." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. The room spun. That night, she sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand. Mama Nena's breathing was shallow, her eyes barely open. "Amara," she whispered, "you are all I have. But I want you to live. Promise me you won't give your soul away for me." Amara didn't answer. Her heart was already made up. 1 week later, Amara stood in front of Obinna's mansion in a simple white gown. Her hair was wrapped in a gold scarf, her hands trembling as the heavy iron gates opened. Villagers watched in stunned silence. Some pitied her, others gossiped. But none dared to speak too loud. The girl with the beautiful heart was marrying the man everyone feared. Obinna sat inside, dressed in an expensive agbada, his face blank. His dark eyes studied her, revealing nothing. The wedding was silent, private. No dance, no joy. Just vows and a signature. And then she was led to her new room. Cold, large and lifeless. Days turned into weeks. Binna barely spoke. He ate alone, read books alone, and stayed locked in his study most of the day. Amara, despite her pain, tried to stay kind. She cleaned the house, made meals, and cared for the indoor garden that he never tended to. Sometimes she would catch him watching her from the corner of his eye. His gaze lingered, like he was trying to understand her, like she confused him. But he never said anything, until one rainy evening. She had placed a bowl of okra soup on the table. As she turned to leave, he spoke. "You hate me," he said flatly. "You stop." "No," she said, surprised. "I don't." "You should," he muttered. "I bought you like a goat." Amara looked at him. For the first time, she saw the pain in his eyes. Not just physical pain, but loneliness, bitterness, guilt. "You saved my mother," she said softly. "For that, I will always respect you." He looked away. Later that night, Amara found a note slipped under her door. It read, "She is recovering well. The doctor said she might walk again after full treatment." Her knees gave out. She wept into her pillow, grateful. But something had shifted. Obinna became quieter, but less angry. He started taking his meals in the same room. Sometimes he would ask about her day. He even let her plant flowers near the main gate. And then one afternoon, he wheeled himself into the small garden behind the house and said, "Show me how you care for these flowers." It was the first time he smiled. But things were not as simple as they seemed. One night, Amara overheard a conversation between Obinna and his younger brother, Chuka, who had come to visit. "You think she loves you?" Chuka laughed. "She's just paying her debt. No woman can love a cripple." Amara froze behind the door. "You don't know her," Obinna replied. "She's different." Chuka scoffed. "Don't be a fool. Once her mother recovers, she'll leave you." The word stung like a slap. That night, Obinna didn't join Amara for dinner. He didn't speak to her for 2 days. When she finally asked what was wrong, he said coldly, "Maybe it's time we stop pretending." Amara stared at him, her heart breaking. "You think I'm pretending? I know you pity me. That's worse than hatred." "No," she said, stepping closer. "I did this for my mother. But everything after that, the meals, the garden, the moments, they were real. You're not the man people think you are." He looked away, his jaw clenched. "I see your pain," she said, tears in her eyes. "But I also see your heart." Obinna's voice cracked. "What if you regret this marriage one day?" She took his hand gently. "Then I'll live with that regret. But right now, I don't." The rains came early that year, soaking the dusty paths of Amara and turning the village into a maze of mud and puddles. Inside the high walls of Obinna's mansion, something even more unpredictable had begun to stir. Love, hesitant but real, like a flame trying to survive the wind. After their heart-wrenching exchange that night, Amara began to notice the smallest of changes in Obinna. He no longer avoided her gaze. He didn't hide behind sarcasm or walls of silence. He started asking about her favorite songs, her childhood, even her dreams. At first, Amara didn't know how to respond. Was this a man learning to trust again? Or just someone afraid of being abandoned? But slowly, she too found herself opening up. She told him about her mother's laughter before the sickness, the mango tree where she used to hide as a child, the way she dreamed of becoming a nurse someday. And Obinna, in turn, shared stories of his fall from the tree, the pain of betrayal by old friends, and how he once believed no one could love a broken man. One warm morning, as the sun bathed the garden in golden light, Obinna rolled beside her while she was watering the hibiscus flowers. "You know," he said, watching the petals sway in the breeze, "I thought I was going to die bitter and alone." Amara looked up. "Why didn't you?" He turned to her, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. "Because you brought life back into this house." Tears welled in her eyes. They sat in silence, two hearts slowly learning to speak again. And that was the day Obinna asked her, not as a debt, but as a man in love, "Will you stay with me, even if your mother no longer needs me?" Amara didn't answer right away. The question haunted her all night. Was she truly in love? Or was it still gratitude, wrapped in affection? The next day, a letter arrived from the city hospital. Amara tore it open with trembling hands. Her mother had not only survived the surgery but had started walking again. The doctors were amazed at her recovery. A nurse wrote that Mama Nena often spoke of her daughter, the brave one who gave up her freedom to save her. Amara knelt beside her bed and wept. Her mother was free. But what about her? A few days later, Amara traveled to the city to bring her mother home. It was a long, tearful reunion. Mama Nena, still frail but smiling, hugged her with all the strength she had. "You did this for me," her mother whispered. But now, child, what will you do for you? Amara didn't answer. Not yet. When they returned to the village, Mama Nena insisted on staying in the family hut. You are a wife now, she said with pride. Go back to your husband. But Amara didn't go immediately. She wandered through the village, her thoughts tangled in emotion. People smiled at her differently now. With respect, even envy. Whispers of the cripple who was changing and the girl who had softened his heart spread like wildfire. That night, under the moonlight, Amara stood at the gate of Obina's mansion. He was waiting at the doorstep, his face unreadable. She walked in silently, dropped her bag and stood in front of him. My mother is healed, she said. He nodded, pain flickering in his eyes. I know. I don't owe you any more, she added. He nodded again. I know that too. She stepped closer, tears glistening. But I still want to stay. Obina's lips trembled. Why? Because somewhere between sorrow and survival I found you. And somewhere between silence and suffering, you found me. He couldn't speak. His arms trembled as he reached for her hand. Amara knelt beside him. This time I choose you. Not because of duty, not because of debt. But because I see the man behind the wheelchair. And I love him. Tears rolled down his cheeks. It was the first time he cried in front of anyone since his accident. In the months that followed, their lives transformed. Obina began physical therapy, encouraged by Amara's faith in him. He started attending community meetings, donating to village schools, even planting trees in his father's old cocoa farm. One afternoon, the villagers gathered for a celebration, not for a festival, but for a miracle. Obina stood from his wheelchair for the first time in years, using crutches. The crowd erupted in cheers. Beside him, Amara clapped through her tears. Love is not about perfection, the chief said that day. It is about choosing each other again and again, especially when the world says you shouldn't. Years later, people in Kara still told the story of the poor girl who married the crippled man to save her mother, and stayed not because she had to, but because love chose her back. They say Obina built a health center in the village, named after Mama Nena. And Amara. She became a nurse, just like she always dreamed. But more than anything, she became a living reminder that real love does not always arrive with roses or gold, but sometimes with tears, sacrifice and healing hands.